Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks coming off of their bye. I saw Oregon's declared their state vegetable. Our state vegetable is the potato.
Yeah.
I think it's because we beat everybody in the state of Idaho, Idaho State, Idaho, and Boise State.
That's all they got. They don't have any other schools, and so we're 3-0. We now own the potato.
We've stolen the vegetable from them.
You almost won, but almost doesn't count.
It does not.
Potatoes is our now.
Oregon is going to UCLA. They are a sizable favorite, as we talked about on the Big Pee-Pee yesterday. 26 points last I saw.
I got 25.5 this
So it's
morning.
dropped a little bit. Okay. So Oregon is a 25-point favorite. What time will we be drinking our coffee or energy drink for the 8 o'clock kick? This is stupid late.
Stupid late. 8 o'clock is ridiculous.
I will be in bed at midnight. My wife will be snoring. I'll be like, well, now I'm not having sex.
Nope.
And now I'm wondering why I'm still awake.
And then you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning.
I'll be
That's
raising
what I
the
always
blinds.
do.
We got poker night with the boys Saturday night.
It's a good night to do it. You keep distracted. There's a couple of games on. You can kind of flip around. The night slate is actually decent. 8 o'clock just should be outlawed. Like, that's one thing I think all college fans can agree with. It's 7:30, whatever. You're pushing it a little bit. 7, I'm okay with.
Just think about how
8
they're
o'clock
feeling.
kick should be illegal.
Michigan, Ohio State, Big Ten want to see what the Ducks are up to. 11 p.m. That thing kicks off.
Watching
But
that,
the psychos, they watch it.
Yeah, it's, maybe they will on this one. I think
No,
maybe
they will. We did the They did the study in the Seattle Times. This never hung on, and I never got it.
Well, this is later than I feel like even most Pac-12 after dark games are. Like, there were
There's
occasionally
some
games
about
at 8
10
o'clock, but
versus something starting at 11
starting at 11
o'clock.
p.m. Eastern.
I know you're
Halftime will be 1 o'clock in the morning.
I know you're not used to
The
this.
crew of the population that decides to go out at 11 o'clock is not the college football watching portion
There
of the
will be a
population.
million people watching this game because now we're getting in the thick of conference play. These games matter to these sickos. The Seattle Times did a study, and the vast majority of their viewership from Pac-12 After Dark games, 7:30, 7, 7:45. You don't know that life. You're not a Beaver fan. I did.
Yeah.
They all came from the South.
Well, I think the rating on this game will matter. What does the first half look like? If you want to do, like,
I agree with that,
If
yeah.
this game is
if it's
31-0 at
42-7
halftime,
at halftime.
nobody is staying awake for the second half of this game. On the East Coast, West Duck fans will and that kind of stuff. But on the East Coast, you're not. If it's uncomfortable, if this is Boise again, and you're like, wait a minute, why is Oregon only up 17-14 on UCLA at halftime? This is a 4-touchdown spread. Then people will stick around and watch to see if they get knocked out of the playoff race at 2 o'clock in the morning.
So you have an infant who may wake up at 2:30 a.m. because he needs mom's milk.
Yeah.
I usually wake up pretty early on Sunday mornings, the routine I have. What time will we be drinking coffee Saturday night?
There will be some mixed in. I got to go to a wedding on Saturday, and so for me, it'll probably be mixed in. I'm going to see if they have like a mixed cocktail at the reception for like a little bit of Red
espresso
Bull.
martini?
Yeah, a little martini, maybe a Red Bull, vodka, just something to give me a boost to get through this because I learned this about myself last Friday when the Washington State-San Jose State game was going on. I wanted to watch the second half of that game. I was even laying in bed. I was ready to go, and I got one series in, and I fell asleep 3 times at the start of the second half. So there's going to need to be some sort of supplementation to get me through the end of this game because it's ridiculously late. And I do want to watch all of it because if it goes according to plan, Oregon should hopefully have a comfortable win. We'll wait and see on that. They didn't the first 2 weeks of the year. But one of the reasons I like watching that stuff is they got a lot of really young, talented players that didn't get a chance to play in those first 2 games. Now, they got a cup of coffee against Oregon State, but I'm hoping to see some of those guys in the second half, and so I'll stay up and watch the whole thing.
So I probably will too because I don't want to come to the show Monday, and it might be, I think I said yesterday, 55-17. It may be one of those games. Maybe it's a little closer than we're giving it credit. UCLA, I thought, played a little better at LSU than many were saying they would.
It's so hard to get a read on. Is that LSU just because then they outscored them 17-0 in the second half? Is that UCLA figuring something out? Is that LSU not caring?
Don't we know LSU is like an 8-4 type team?
Yeah.
Don't we know that?
I think that's fair assessment.
Okay. 8-4 is not bad.
Yeah.
It's still LSU. It's still SEC. It's still Brian Kelly. I hear what you're saying. I still give them credit. They had gotten embarrassed by Indiana. I thought they were going to get bludgeoned by LSU.
Yeah, score's the score.
And they had a chance there until they didn't. But I will stay up and watch the full experience, even if they're in a blowout. So I don't come in Monday and Dirt's like, well, actually in the fourth quarter.
You didn't see Dante Moore throw 3 tutties in the fourth quarter?
No, it's not
Get my pants tied about 20-25?
It's going to be some random lineman. And if you actually go back to the camp reports, they were ranting and raving about this.
The number 4 tight end.
Yeah. And I'm going to go, okay, cool.
Kenyon Sadiq scored 3 tutties in the third. What are we doing?
I heard he was Bowers, and I've
Hey,
barely heard his name
hey.
this year.
Going to be Bowers. Not Bowers now. Going to be Bowers.
When you say the
Be
name
patient,
Bowers,
young grasshopper.
Okay.
Well,
What was
you got
Bowers doing
Sadiq,
as a sophomore?
You got
Nothing.
Herbert, and you've got Ferguson. So who's the number 4 tight end?
It's a good question. I don't know. Probably one of their freshmen.
See, that'll be the guy that you come
See
in
if I
who
can
gets
say
a
the name
couple
right.
of tutties late.
Saliapega, I think is how
Okay.
you say his last
Okay,
name.
sure.
I think.
Great.
I think so.
I'll take your word on
There
that.
you go.
Go ahead and write that one down.
So we may be watching Saliapega at the end of this football game after we drink our coffee and then find out we didn't need to stay up and watch the whole thing.
now I'm just wired till 2 a.m. for no reason.
By the way, the poll question is up. Should 8 p.m. kickoffs in college football be outlawed? Yes. WTF are we doing? No. Love late night at foosball.
Nobody wants 8 o'clock kicks. 7 o'clock, fine. 8 o'clock, no. 8 o'clock's too late.
Or are you just saying West Coast? Because there's a lot of 8 p.m. kicks back
There
Central
is.
Time.
They should be banned out there too.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody. That's too late for everybody.
Dan Lanning, you mentioned this. I think a lot of people off of the Civil War and then going into the bye concluded, yeah, okay, they're back. That's the team I thought I was going to see. They had 2 other games.
They did.
So the sample size actually outweighs
2-1.
what they are so far. They have a real opportunity this weekend to kind of show us, okay, we're building off it. Here's Dan Lanning off of coming off the Civil War versus what the first 2 wins were.
Yeah, better. Yeah, it was better. Better than the first 2, and still not our best, right? So I think there were some real positives to take away there. I think we really, offense had a lot of success each drive, which is a positive. I think special teams still played, well and made some big kicks, and defense I thought really came together in the second half. And so, what I keep talking to our team about is I'm not interested in us playing our best football right now. I'm interested in us getting better every single game, right? As long as we're getting better every single game, and then by the time we get to Thanksgiving, hopefully we're starting to see this is our best ball. But I don't think you expect to skip step 1, 2, and 3 and get to step 10, right? It's a progression, and the key is, are we getting better every single week? And I think so far we've been able to do that this season.
So there was Lanning on with primetime yesterday, as he is every Thursday at 4 o'clock. And the interesting thing here is not only hey, do you build off of, what you were and what you showed against Oregon State?
Yeah.
But you go in this game, and it's almost a universal, I think, opinion, and maybe I'm not reading the duck room correctly. Should be a blowout. Should be a game we win by a substantial margin. I think it took all of one game.
We're back, baby.
We're back.
We are back.
Playoff conversation. They're in playoff projections for most people.
Yeah.
But to me, I think if I'm to take a 30,000-foot view, I just look at the next 2 games, UCLA and then Michigan State. And I don't look at those per se and say, well, opponent, test, all this, yada, yada, yada. One, they're much lesser opponents than you on paper. How do you handle that? Because you came in against Idaho and looked like you just didn't care at all about Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
And then Boise State was supposed to be your bounce-back win against a team you had substantially more talent than, and they kind of kicked your ass in some ways and tested you. Okay, well, then you beat Oregon State. Then you go into a bye. These 2 weeks are your Ohio State ramp-up weeks. This is, I would imagine, when Dan Lanning Dirt is saying to himself, his coaching staff, and even to the players, we need to lock in. We need to be getting to who we are because the Buckeyes are coming to town in, 3 weeks?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting answer from him on where his team's at and what he's telling his team. And I would be curious to know, and he'd never answer this, but has the message changed at all with the format structure of the sport this year?
Not a chance in hell those messages change.
No, I'm just saying, when you say, I want to be playing you always want to be playing your best ball at the end of the year. Obviously, going into the playoffs, that's you going into bowl games and conference championships, that's when you want to be at your best. But I think there's an aspect in this model now where style points don't matter as much as they used to. It's not 4 teams. You're not looking over point differential. You're not looking, they had that one close game, but this team didn't have that one close game. So
right.
Are they a 4 or are they a 5? Or are the outside looking in? I thought it was very interesting, his honesty of dude, I'm not looking for us to be our best right now. I'm looking for us to get better every week and to peak at the end of the season. And that's where I'm curious if that has changed at all, because you just don't have the same pressure week in and week out that you used to with a 14 playoff format, where if you lose a game like this or have a close game, that could be held against you come playoff time. And that's not really the case anymore. I do think fans are in the mindset of this should be a blowout. partially because Oregon showed you what you thought you would see against Oregon State, and they dominated that game. Partly because UCLA sucks. Like, this is just a bad football team. Ethan Garbers is a veteran quarterback. He's been around a long time. They can't run the football at all. Their leading rusher on the year, their leading running back through, 3 games, has 72 yards.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have a run longer than 14 yards on the season.
And Garbers is more a mobile guy.
He's more of a mobile guy.
throwing.
They have, through their first, 1 and 2, I think they played
1
3
and
games.
2, yeah.
They have 1 rushing touchdown in 3 games, man. Like, this is not a good team. And so, yeah, if it's close and uncomfortable, that's a problem. And we'll revert back to the way that you looked in the first 2 weeks. But I will reiterate what I said out of the Boise game, and I thought it rung true in the Civil War, and that is, the primary reason in my mind why that game was close and uncomfortable, Ashton Jeanty, yes, is incredible, but it was Oregon doing a lot of things to hurt themselves. And when you play a team with lesser talent than you, if you do things to beat yourselves, you will allow them an opportunity to stay in the game. And they didn't do that against Oregon State, and the final score was 49-14. So where are the offensive line penalties? Are they where they were under Boise or where they were under Oregon State? Where are the turnovers? Do you turn it over twice like you did against Boise or 0 times against Oregon State? If you do stupid things, you will allow teams to play with you. They learned that lesson the hard way the first 2 weeks of the season. What was so reassuring is that they at least showed you they're capable of playing clean football. Now it's about, can you go do it again and do it again and do it again the rest of the way? Because they showed you what they're capable of against Oregon State.
We hear from Dan Lanning, his thoughts on who UCLA is so far, 1 and 2. To your point, Garbers had minus 51 rushing yards because of the sack totals.
Yeah, it's
so their rushing total got knocked. Not that it was great anyway, but minus 51 will knock it substantially down.
and they literally can't run the football.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to that game. So I had the quad on, and this was one of the games that I would kind of go back and forth on having my quad. And every time I looked up, they'd have a run. And I go, man, look at them on the ground.
Here comes the UCLA.
And then when they went up double digits, LSU, I checked out of that game. And I look at their box score and I go, well, okay, I thought they were running the football. Well, it turns out they weren't.
I think this is a game where you can see your edge rushers hopefully dominate. You haven't really, Idaho had to throw the ball a little bit. Boise State just leaned on Jeanty. Oregon State, we knew wanted to run the football a ton. This is a game where you can force them into a lot in 3rd and longs and let those guys tee off on Garbers.